Good morning, everyone. EagleX from ATX EagleX Gaming here today, and I'm really excited to showcase this deck profile, not just of someone I know, but someone who is consistently showing up to online events. I want the man to introduce himself. Michael, go ahead and give yourself a short introduction here.
Hey everybody, my name's Michael. I play in a lot of webcam tournaments. I'm from Toronto. I'm from playing Magic the Gathering, and I started playing Digimon this year. I found the game to be a lot of fun. I used to watch the show as a little kid, and I'm happy to see how much the genre and the game has grown.
Yeah, for sure. I'll be honest, I'm surprised with how the game's going, and I'm excited to see it keep going as well, as we're approaching a new format soon. Like, we're getting ready to approach Nationals, but it's still great to showcase these decks because they're going to be relevant still. So we're going to be talking about your top 16 deck profile that you took to the Kartika Magica Ultimate Cup recently. But real quickly, if you guys enjoy this content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. When I see support for these types of videos, it lets me know I'm going in the right direction for the type of content you guys want to see. In addition to that, if you guys aren't aware, I run weekly webcam tournaments. I do them every Tuesday and Sunday. Custom sleeves are one of the most popular things right now in these tournaments. Anyways, with that being said, let's go ahead and get talking about this deck profile for WargreymonX. So if you guys aren't aware, WargreymonX is a deck that really showcased in BT10, and it's basically what Greymon Tribal evolved from, or digivolved from per se. The BT9X antibody lines provide the Greymon line with not only more aggression, but also some natural protection. And with the BT10 EX3 format kind of being pushed down a more aggressive path, we aren't really seeing time for these mid-range decks. We're seeing it go fast to like Melga OTKs, or into decks that will kind of like counterplay it. It's like those heavy control decks, BL Star and Security Control. But as a great response, WargreymonX feasts on these types of decks thanks to all this natural protection. So the ideal opener for this deck, you're not really looking for the perfect rookie when you're building up these decks. And that's something that a lot of people need to be aware of. So like, when you play throughout the tournament, Michael, obviously you want to go for rookies with inheritables when you can. But how often would you say you go into like a BT5 Agu or an Agu X as your first rookie?
Well, probably maybe 3/4 of the time. It's rare to go into the Agumon with the inheritable, the promo version, or the starter deck version if you want to get the one that gets 2,000 from attacking players. I've also found that right now there's not that much of a big security number to look out for. So really, people are putting Digimon that have like 12,000 DP in their deck, and not a lot of decks are playing level 7s. So you don't have to worry about too much DP higher than that. 13 is kind of rare too.
Yeah, you actually brought up a really key point. Like, DP thresholds are really big when you're looking at a format. Because like, if we're talking about a Bond format, and this is kind of going off tangent, but like Bond format had a very low DP threshold. So like, if you're swinging with a 7k body, it lives a lot. That's why the promo Greymon was relevant then. But you're just talking like, this deck has naturally large numbers. It's a red deck. So when you're building these towers, you don't have to have that perfect line. Of course, the perfect line is going to be the best line, but really some of the key cards you would probably absolutely want. Promo Agu, I can say you don't absolutely need, but WargreymonX, Metal Grey X are two of the biggest key cards in the deck, in my opinion. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So just kind of talking on to our next point is like an ideal combo. If all the stars are lining up, it is possible to do a true OTK with 3 memory and from a level 5 and raising. The whole concept here, if you guys aren't aware, you get extra checks for multiple things in this deck. One of them being the starter deck Greymon, another one being Metal Grey X, another one being BT1 Wargrey. So if you have just a stack with those, get the 1 initial check, the 1 starter Grey check, the 1 Metal Grey X check, and the 1 BT1 Wargrey check. That's 4 checks. So if you have the X anti option and you promote a level 5 Metal Grey, go into Metal Grey X, go into BT1 Wargrey, Swing security 4 checks at least 15k DP with no options. You're pretty safe there. And then you can do the final check of the OTK of digivolving into a Blitz Omnimon, swinging security with Blitz, using the win attack of X-Ante again to go to the new Omni-X to reveal that last security, trash it, and do the damage with the Blitzing Omnimon X stack. Which kind of comes down to some things to be mindful of in this deck. So, when you're playing this deck, one thing to be aware of, WargreymonX provides protection not just for your Greymon, so not just Greymon, Metal Greymon, WarGreymon, but also your Omnimons. So if you have an Omnimon on field with a Grey X inheritable, if you can remove 2 level 3s, 2 level 4s, 2 level 5s, 2 level 6s, you'll be able to prevent the Omnimon from being bounced or deleted by effects. Similar thing I kind of mentioned when going for that ideal combo, Blitz Omnimon can use the ESS of the X antibody option to digivolve into Omni-X. This is a very powerful effect. I know when I played WargreymonX, my favorite thing to do was Omni-X into the BT5 Omnimon X, just to kind of lock your opponent out of being able to swing and do damage. When you played your tournament run, how often did you get like this perfect stack?
Never came up. There were times where I was able to get the Omnimon X, and it mattered, but it didn't win me the turn. It didn't win me the game the turn I went into it. Yeah. Adding extra ties, adding extra Agumons in play, you can up that number, so it's even strong against recovery decks.
And that's like another reason why this is a deck that feasts on security style decks. Like BT1 Wargrey, I argued was the main level 6 I used in the deck. I think my build a while back was 4 BT1 Wargreys with 2 Wargrey X's. Wargrey X is cool, but BT1 Wargrey gets the job done, right?
So yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about, and it all works around the X antibody option. So as you know, that option, it's just a way to cheat memory, and it's one of the best cards in the whole deck, actually. So obviously, if it's checked in security, you gain a memory. That's one way to cheat memory in the game. You can add it under any one of your Digimon and swing, and as long as you're swinging, it can digivolve to an X antibody or whatever the cost is. So for example, say that you were in a poor position where your opponent had choked you every turn, but they were really ahead on board and you need to get something done. You can promote your level 4, like you have in the image here. You have the Greymon level 4. You could promote that, attach X antibody, swing, and go into Metal Greymon, and you can still check them for 11 3 checks. It is risky because 11,000 DP on the opponent's turn is not that difficult for most decks to handle right now, but it is a way to get out some early checks if you're really just not drawing your cards and you want to get something done. Also, if you promote the Greymon and you are at 3 memory, you can attach the X antibody, get digivolve into Metal GreymonX, get the plus 3,000 DP and security attack, then swing, and then go into the Greymon X antibody. That's not in this picture here. It'll still cost you 7 memory for the turn, but you're gonna do 3 checks and you're gonna get 3 memory back, most likely, because your WarGreymon will be at least
massive
15,000, maybe 16,000 if you have a Hormone Egg.
Yeah, and that's just like a whole thing. Like, there's so much flexibility. We've talked about the deck. Let's go ahead and showcase what the actual deck was. Like, we look through here, and I'm not going to say anything negative about the build. Like, the rookies, they're pretty solid. The rookies are good for what they are, right? And I think the level 4s are in a very similar spot, but I think you see flexibility when it comes more to the top end. You'll see, oh, some people choose BT8 Metal Grey, some people like BT7 Metal Grey. Other people don't even use the Metal Grey from EX1. They may emphasize the Ultras promos, and that's really where it comes down to the deck builder and what they thought was valuable in the format. So, looking back on your run, would you say this was the perfect list that you would use again, or would you say there's something you would change up?
I think every card has its best case scenario, and obviously if I knew what I was going to run up against I could tailor my deck to specifically beat those opponents. Given the format in general, I'm pretty happy with the deck. I was actually expecting to see more Metal Garurumon than I saw, and I was expecting to see more Bloom. Well, I did see 2 Bloom Lords, but I thought that was going to be very popular. I also thought that other WargreymonX's would be popular, and they weren't. There are certain cards here that you want against certain matchups. The first card we see there at the top row is Metal Greymon from BT10. I do not play this card to attack with it. It is there for the inheritable, and it was there to be... I was testing it, basically, and I was happy with it, actually. It's always nice to have the extra peace of mind when you attack that your Digimon's going to be so big that nothing it hits in security, and also you can consider that you can hit over any other suspended Digimon, and you're always going to be bigger than it. Counting the egg is 1,000, counting this one is 3,000, counting WargreymonX antibodies another 3,000. That's plus 7,000 DP on top of either of your level 6s. So you will be at 18 or 19,000, and that is a number where you just don't have to worry. The matchup where I found that this Metal Greymon was the most useful, just for the inheritable, I never attacked with it, was the X antibody matchup. Sorry, the game where I found that this Metal Greymon from BT1 was most useful for the inheritable was the Xamon matchup. I did lose my matches against that opponent, but in both games I got this Metal Greymon in my stack, and I was able to promote my level 6 out of raising, which you have to do against Xamon, and it did not get blocked and it did not die. So if I had the X antibody option, an Omnimon with Blitz to unsuspend and attack again, and the Omnimon X antibody, I could then Digivolve my level 6 again into Blitz Omnimon, do the combo where I attach first I attach the security, then go into Blitz Omnimon, unsuspend, attack again, declare on attack, Digivolve to Omnimon X antibody, and I could put their Xamon at the bottom of their deck, which is might be enough to win the game on the spot, or give me an opportunity to win on the following turn, because that is a card that they probably can't answer, especially when it's removing one of their security every turn. The next level 5 is the best one. There's 4 of them. It's the Metal GreymonX antibody. You probably don't want to be attacking if you did not Digivolve into this Digimon this turn. If it's not self-explanatory, maybe Zach, you want to ask some specifics about it?
It's a pretty bread and butter staple card of this deck, like plus 3k, and if you have the option or Metal Grey and sources, and then the extra check. There's nothing not to love about the card. Not to mention it's either free or it costs 3, which is what you're paying anyways. I think the bigger question I really have is EX1 Metal Grey. What made you choose this one? Was it for the mainline text, or was it for the inheritables?
Everything about this card is good, except that it only gives piercing to your level 6s, and the DP is only 7,000. I really wish it was 8,000. So when you Digivolve into this Digimon, it's almost always going to be in raising. Then the following turn you will promote. So you have a choice here. When you promote with this Digimon, you can either simply Digivolve into the Metal Greymon X antibody for free, give yourself plus 3,000 security attack plus 1, and then if you have enough memory, go into a WarGreymon. If you don't have enough memory, then you could use the X antibody and go swing and then go into a Metal Greymon X antibody. Go over one of your opponent's suspended Digimon, delete it, attack their security because it has piercing, and then if they have multiple Digimon, I'll delete something else. The piercing lets you knock out 2 things in 1 turn. If you don't have a level 6, and you see that your opponent has a smaller Digimon out 4,000 DP or less, you can choose to attack their security, but first attach X antibody underneath it, then declare attack into their security, trigger the when attacking effect to delete something of 4,000 DP or less, then trigger the X antibodies when attacking to Digivolve into Metal Greymon X. The opponent's Digimon will be deleted, and then you will be hitting their security with at least 2 security checks and at least 10,000 DP. Sorry, 11,000 DP, because you'll be on a MichaelIafrate's antibody now, and maybe even 12,000. Most likely because you've probably promoted from raising, and then you would have the core one. So in that way, you've taken out at least 2 of their security for 12,000, which is generally a safe check, and also wiped out one of their Digimon, the smaller ones, probably a Searcher.
Yeah, or even one thing I was just thinking of is you can pop a memory blocker with the EX1 Metal Gray, then go into WargreymonX and gain your memory for the checks.
There are games where your opponent might be playing Metal Garurumon, and then they're kind of brick, so their best play is to hard play out Garurumon 4-cost one that has 4,000 DP body. If you can attack the same turn that they promote and then delete that, even if your level 5 dies in their security, you got a security and you made them waste a card plus 4 memory. So yeah, it's still your turn after you attack, right? So you could just play your Agumon and start building up, and they will have nothing on board. That's a rare case, but it does come up.
Yep, and then we get to the Altars promo. It's great. It's a free cycle. It's a free pop if you have a tamer. And it's an extra backup layer protection too, right?
Backup protection is very good because you don't always have time to wait for the WargreymonX antibody to show up. It is easy to find the WargreymonX antibody though, because so many things will search for it. But it's there as a backup to that. But really, the reason I like this card is because it can Digivolve for free, and it can pop a 5,000 DP Digimon or less if you have a tamer in play. It's important to remember that you need to have the tamer in play, but there are no other conditions to meet. It does not have to Digivolve over another Greymon. You can Digivolve over a Metal Greymon. It's up to you. Obviously, with this Digimon, it's got only 7,000 DP. You don't want to attack with it directly. You want to either go over it with a level 6 or a Metal Greymon before you attack. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's a WargreymonX deck. You're going to be running WargreymonX and then BT1 Wargrey. I kind of talked about it earlier, but BT1 Wargrey, I almost consider it the key player of this deck. But I think with how the format shifted towards more security-oriented decks, it makes a lot more sense. Or just in general, like using WargreymonX against wider decks, being able to delete something, gain some memory, like Bloom Hydra, it's pretty relevant to enable more on your turn with the memory gaining effect, right?
I honestly believe that the WarGreymon from BT1 is the better of the two, but even though it costs only 3 to Digivolve compared to the WarGreymon X costing 4 to Digivolve, it is in a lot of situations the more expensive WarGreymon. And what I mean by that is, as long as you have your X antibody option, as long as it's your turn and you can swing with the level 5 and you have the MichaelIafrate's antibody in your hand, you're Digivolving into it essentially with Blitz. It doesn't have a when attacking effect, so you're not missing out on anything when you Digivolve on attack with the X antibody option, but you're essentially attacking with Blitz, and you gain memory back for every security you checked. So if you just gain back 2 memory after attacking with this Digimon, you are going to be spending overall less than the 3 memory would have cost for the WarGreymon X. The only downside to this Digimon is that it doesn't help with your one-hit KO strategy because it doesn't give you any security attack like the WarGreymon from BT1 does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why you run both. Like, they both have their applications, and it's something I have below. Like, the EX1 Wargrey, was that ever in consideration for your build? Because it does have the Blitz, and it will let you do some really crazy extensions.
It would be, but I thought that Bloomlord would be more popular, and I think I was right to not include it because I did play against 2 Bloomlords. It doesn't run any blocker, and I feel like you need to get value out of this card in order to run it, and since I'm essentially playing WarGreymon antibody with Blitz for 4 memory and then getting up memory back as long as I have the X antibody option, then I just feel like it's a worse version of the WargreymonX antibody. If I knew that my opponents were playing more blockers, then I'd play it. If your opponent goes into a MichaelIafrate's antibody and passes the turn to you, this is a great card, but it's also not necessary because usually when they go into a MichaelIafrate, it's because they were not able to finish you off, and they probably promoted their stack that turn. So if you have the MichaelIafrate and you attack, even if they block you, you are probably going to be bigger, and you are going to remove their MichaelIafrate from the end of attack effect. So I found it hard to reasonably put this card into the deck. If I did put it into the deck, it would be in a meta where the meta is more about control rather than winning in one turn. So in that case, I would only put it in when I don't want to win, when I'm playing a KO strategy and take out the BT10 WargreymonX.
Yeah, and then in your deck, you have a top end of 2 Blitz Omni and 1 BT10 X Omni. Was there ever a situation where you think you would have preferred the BT5 Omni X?
Yeah, if I thought I was going to run into Grandis a lot, Grandis Kuwagamon, then I would be playing probably that as a 1 of, or maybe even a 2 of, because there is nothing in the deck to stop that card. You would have to be running removal options and get lucky enough that they show up in your security, and that would be your only hope against that deck. So even in testing against Grandis Kuwagamon with the OmniMon-X antibody, there are times when they go into that full combo and kill you before you are even able to Digivolve into an OmniMon-X antibody. Even if you have all the cards in your hand, it's so expensive to go up into that you don't have it ready. If you're, the reason it's expensive is because if your opponent is able to suspend you, you can't, and attack over you with piercing, you can't just promote and let your Digimon sit out in the play area. You have to leave it back in raising if you're worried about them bringing out a Grandis Kuwagamon, because with 18,000 DP, they might be able to swing over just about anything. Or with 16,000 DP. Is it 18,000 or 16,000 when they attack? I think it's 16.
16 without Yoko.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, you can't just leave out your Digimon, so you have to leave it in raising and then promote with this Digimon. And when you have this guy out, at most, he will be 2 checks every turn if you have the starter deck underneath him, but it just, while it buys you time, it does not help you really win the game any faster. So the better strategy I found was to cross your fingers and hope that you're not playing against Grandis.
And I think that's a fair thing to assess based on the meta too, right?
Yeah. With the Blitz Omnimon, I think that is really the better Omnimon in this situation, because it's the only card in the deck that allows you to win in one turn. There are no hybrids in the deck. Assuming that you don't have a small Digimon just like waiting to do your attack after you wipe out your opponent's security, you need the Blitz Omnimon to finish the game. And a lot of times games are lost because you don't have it, and you gave your opponent the opportunity to win on the follow-up turn after you wiped out their whole security.
Yeah, it's always like this really back and forth type of game. And then just kind of closing out the deck profile, like you got Red Memory Boost. It's a great tutoring card. Talked about searching. It's a great searching card. Getting 2 memory back on a follow-up turn, really great. X antibody option, great way to extend plays, cheat out plays in a sense, or really add another layer of depth to what would normally feel like a very linear deck, right?
Yeah, the X antibody option, it really feels like you're breaking the rules of Digimon with it, because it lets you activate when Digivolving as long as you have this specific Digimon or X antibody option underneath. It gives you those triggers. It also lets you basically attack with Blitz, which is not necessarily fair on a card that was designed not to have Blitz. The Red Memory Boosts search for almost anything important in your deck. Obviously, if they could switch for the Omnimons, they would be even better. Too bad. Those cards, I love to see them in security because it feels like, The reason I like to see it in security is because it just lets you blow up your opponent with value on the turn following. Usually an opponent will try to pass the turn only leaving you with 2 or 1 memory, especially if you don't have your tie out. So when you have a memory boost ready to go, you can go from your level 3 to your level 6 very easily, especially if you have the X antibody option out, or maybe a cool boy set up to gain a little bit of help to go up that line. The tie is there, it's always a memory set. It's useful, the earlier you play it, the better. This deck doesn't generate a lot of memory, so it's not really good to save it for a turn when you think you could surprise your opponent and do that, get that extra check by just dropping it and swinging the same turn. You probably want to play it in advance of the turn you need it. It's not necessary for a one-hit combo, but it's more consistent for the one-hit combo than using the Blitz Omnimon and the OmnimonX antibody combo. Cool Boy is a value card. It's going to draw you multiple cards per game, for sure, which is important when you need certain pieces, and it will get you lots of memory per game. The OmnimonX antibody is there to be to contribute to the one-hit KO strategy, but it's actually, in my experience, most important and necessary when you're up against an opponent that is controlling the board, and this will take the board back for you.
Okay, so it's like a really good comeback card in your mind.
Yeah, it's the best comeback card in the whole deck, actually. It's even better than Metal Greymon because there are abilities that protect against deletion, but there are fewer abilities that protect against bottom decking.
Yeah, I'd say that sounds right. From a just general thought. Now we can kind of talk about some of these side tech cards, and we don't have to go super in depth on them. BT8 Metal Grey. I can tell you personally, I feel like it's a card in the wrong deck here.
I have a lot of experience with the Black WargreymonX deck, and this card is a hero in that deck, but in this deck, it's a 0. The reason it's not that good is because it doesn't contribute to your winning strategy. If you could combo this card with the piercing of the Metal Greymon from EX1, then it would be so great. You could take over any one of your opponent's Digimon, you would be big, and then you'd be winning just by promoting. It would be kind of like playing the grandest Wagamon deck plus all these extra effects and extra security checks and protection from deletion that deck doesn't have. But it doesn't have the ability to stack with piercing, so really it's only going to slow your deck down by needing to Digivolve for 4. You don't really have a way to consistently start your turn with enough memory that you could Digivolve into this and do something else. When you Digivolve into a Metal Greymon for BT8, you're usually ending your turn. So yeah, it slows down the deck. If you playing Black WargreymonX, definitely you need 4 of these, but in this deck, you want to go with cheaper and more aggressive options.
Yeah, and then we have the BT7 Metal Grey. This has been something I've seen as a one-of splash card, and the reason it gets splash is because it's just a way to unbrick an awkward hand. Because, like, one of the bricks you can have in this deck is not having a level 3, not having a level 4, right? So the alternative is you have this 5 and you probably have some tamers and a 6. And it kind of gives you a way to play into those bricked hands.
Turn 1, it's very difficult to handle any Digimon that either player plays. So if you were to go turn 1, Metal Greymon, drop a tie along with it, given this has to be a red tamer, you're off to a good start. Even if you just swung into their security and it died, you got a security check for essentially 3 memory, which is normal because your Agumons will be hard played for 3, and then you're probably just going to swing with those. So it's about the same. It can be argued that giving your opponent 7 memory on the first turn is really dangerous, because while you're simply dropping a big Digimon and a Tamer, that will essentially not be able to one-hit KO them because you're missing the Metal Garurumon that needs to be underneath. Sorry, it will not be able to one-hit KO them because you're missing Greymon with security attack +1 if you just hard drop it. But you're giving your opponent the chance to set up consistent memory, like their own tamers, their memory boosts, their own search. So it's a risky turn 1 play. I would see this better as a going second turn 1 play. So for example, if your opponent played a memory setter turn 1, you could respond with this to play your memory setter and set them back to 3, and they would have been set to 3 anyways. So you're doing pretty good in that position. The inheritable is also interesting. If you delete a Digimon, you gain a memory. Am I right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and this deck, it has the MichaelIafrate's antibody to delete Digimon. It also has Alterous Mode, which can delete Digimon. So, and if they do have a blocker and you don't have piercing, which you won't if you're using this Digimon, they are going to block you to save 3 or 4, maybe 5 security. So you will gain the memory. The thing is, if you're trying to one-hit KO them, you're not playing the long game. You're not trying to gain memory. You're trying to just win right away. You're just trying to win right away, and in that case, the piercing is slightly better. But I can see the potential for this card.
Yeah, and then we've already talked about the EX1 Wargrey and the OmnimonX antibody from BT5. I think we said good 2 cents on those two. Yeah. And then it kind of comes down to security bombs and Nokia as an other tamer.
Right. So, Crimson Blaze, if you can take out an Omnimon or a memory boost or an X antibody option or any of the tamers, you could fit in the Crimson Blaze. It depends on who you think you're going to be playing against. It's usually good against Bloom Lord, it's usually good against Jessamon, it's usually good against Commandramon. It's also pretty good against Mastamon. It depends if you think you're going to be running into these opponents. The thing is, a deck like Bloom Lord is not a KO deck, so you're not really worried about that deck so much. So playing control against a deck that you're not really worried against is not it's not that helpful. Also, yeah, just think about who you're playing with, and this card is useful depending on the opponent's deck you're playing against. If anybody was running Crimson Blaze against me, playing this Wargreymon deck, I would just think it's a dead card, because I don't play Digimon by effects, and I'm not attacking into their security or leaving Digimon out that are small enough to die from Crimson Blaze and give my opponent the value.
I think that's a great analysis of it, by the way. Just like, you have to recognize what you're doing with your deck, and you don't want to try being a jack of all trades. Some decks are meant to be played like this is a tower deck. You're not controlling and then building a tower at the same time all the time. Like, that's what WargreyMX is for. That's what your level 5 Greymons are for.
Yeah, and even in the Black Wargreymon deck, well, that deck has no problem handling smaller Digimon. So even though it fits with the theme of that deck to wipe out a lot of your opponent's Digimon, it's still not doing something that the deck can't already do, right? So it's a good card, but it's not for the Greymon decks. Then the next card we have here is Gaia Force Zero. Honestly, the only thing that makes this slightly better than regular Gaia Force is that it can be discounted. But if you are using this card, you're probably not going to win in one turn like you want to. Sure, if your opponent has a blocker or something that is bigger than your Digimon that you cannot necessarily attack into, I think you should be able to, though. So ignoring that, but let's say they had a very big Digimon that you couldn't attack into. You could Gaia Force Zero them, then basically Blitz attack, end of turn attack with your Wargreymon, and do however many checks you were going to do that turn. But the downside is you can't go into your Blitz Omnimon also. So it's better to run a combo with the Omnimon X antibody, which lets you attack and move their opponent's Digimon no matter what Digimon it is. Yeah, so Zach, what do you think about that card?
I think that's actually a really great analysis of it, and that's why you just don't see the card played. Like, you do the same job with your level 7s that, first of all, would be cheaper to evo into most of the time, and secondly, just kind of work more cohesively with what you want to do. It's kind of falling back to the Crimson Blaze thing. Like, it's an unneeded thing in the deck. And then we got to touch on Nokia here. My quick analysis, you work with 2 and 3 memory thresholds. If you ran BT8 Metal Gray, you might run Nokia because it helps with that memory threshold. But your numbers are really solid in this deck for either playing with 3 or a memory boost and 1 memory. Like, it's the same threshold.
The thing with Nokia that will help you decide if you're going to run it or not is, are you building in play area or are you building in raising? And that should answer the question of whether or not you're going to use this card.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Now this is something I haven't done before, and I think it's going to be really cool, but we get to talk about your day of the tournament. And you wrote these little synopses about how each match went and things that you noted in each game. We can just kind of talk about this at a high level, and we'll kind of let it go to the viewers to read a bit more in depth if they want to understand at a deeper level about your tournament run.
Okay, sure.
But yeah, let's run through it.
Okay. Round 1 was against the Mirror. My opponent was also playing WargreymonX, which I was expecting a lot of that day. I had to go first in both games, which I was nervous about doing because usually in a deck where you're building a tower, you want access to more cards. You're not really in a rush to be the first to promote out of raising. So when I had to go first in both games, I was at a disadvantage. Fortunately, in game 1, I simply found all my cases faster than my opponent. And if I remember correctly, I one-shotted them with my 5 checks into a Blitz Omnimon for game. And then game 2, when my opponent swung into my security, they actually got their stack built really quickly and a lot quicker than I did. They swung first check into security. I think they had 14,000 DP when they did so, and they hit my Omnimon X antibody first check, which was very sad for them because there was no way for them to come back from that game. And then in game 2, it was against D-Reaper. The matchup was super, super easy. Not because of the player or anything, it's just because their deck does not have anything to stop you. If they have a blocker, you have piercing. If they get out a gatekeeper, you just delete it end of attack with your WargreymonX. And they don't have control cards to remove your Digimon. So as long as you are active in this matchup, you're pretty safe. And also, most of their security is going to be 1,000 DP, so you could start swinging early.
Be a little greedy, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I played the game the way I played the game against this opponent the way I might play against any other opponent, but technically you could start swinging early and not worry too much. Against Bloomlord, it's another deck where they don't have a lot of high end, they have a lot of low end, so you could be a little bit aggressive, but I don't recommend to be aggressive in this matchup because they are able to build up to a really big Digimon with very little memory. In both games, I went second. My opponent bricked game 1. Then, yeah, I'm just rereading my notes here. So what happened? Card drop to level 4, Digivolve to level 5, turn 2, opponents... Oh, okay, so no, I'm telling the story wrong. In game 1, I was the one who bricked. I had no level 3s. I Digivolved... so I had no level 3s. I just hard dropped to level 4. My opponent did not react to it because it was only his second turn after he saw my level 4. And then I went into a level 5 and I crossed my fingers and hoped that he would not do anything. My opponent in that turn played let me look up the name. It's the green Digimon. Yeah, my opponent played a Pomumon. Suspended the Pomumon with an effect to suspend my level 5 Digimon. Managed to get up to a Bloomlordmon. He gained 2 memory and unsuspended his Bloomlordmon, which should have given him piercing. But he forgot to swing over my level 5. And I think he gave me something like 2 memory plus a red memory boost. So on my turn, I think it was 3 memory plus a red memory boost. So then on my turn, I was able to go all the way up into OmnimonX antibody. I attacked over his. So I think what I did was I attached X antibody option to my level 5, swung into his security. Yeah, I think I actually swung into one of his Digimon, and then used the X antibody option to Digivolve into a MichaelIafrate's. The piercing allowed me to delete the Digimon, plus I did security checks, and then end of attack, I got to delete one of his Digimon. Then I went into OmnimonX antibody, and I bounced his highest level Digimon. At that point, I think he had 2 level 5s out, a level 3, or 2 level 5s, 2 level 3s, and 1 Bloom Lord. So when I attacked him, I swung over the Bloom Lord to delete it with piercing. I used the end of attack ability to delete one of his level 3s, and then I went into OmnimonX antibody to bounce both of his level 5s. I wanted the value to return multiple Digimon, so that's why I swung over the Bloom Lord instead of using, and I used the WargreymonX antibody effect to delete a smaller Digimon, so the OmnimonX could to bounce 2 Digimon. And then on his following turn, he didn't have any follow-up plays. And that was an exciting game, because I think my opponent just assumed that with me bricking so hard I would have nothing, but in fact my hand was all high end, and I had the perfect hand to come back as long as he didn't touch my level 5. I think in any normal situation I would have lost that game, but my opponent must have thought that he either didn't have piercing, or he thought it was not a threat. I'm not sure. I didn't ask him.
Yeah, it happens sometimes in these big tournaments. Fatigue's the thing. And then we can move on here to the latter half of the day. And this was the exciting part, because you're up 3-0 after round 3. Go against another Bloom Lord round 4.
Bloom Lord back-to-back. I was very confident going into this matchup. My opponent actually learned some things from this game. Keep in mind that when your Digimon digivolves from what's it called? What's a green Digimon's discount Digivolve effect called?
Digizorb.
Yeah, when they do Digisorption, they don't get the inherited effect for suspending by effect, because the Digimon first suspends, then it Digivolves with a reduced cost. And my opponent thought that he would get the inheritable effect after Digisorption, which had to be corrected. So the game went long because we needed a judge, and our last game was a tie because we didn't finish. The games were difficult because I was not able to get my Metal Greymon with piercing, and he constantly had Cherrymons to redirect my attack into a Digimon that he did not mind losing. And then he would swing back on the next turn with a bigger Digimon to make me start over. So it was a back and forth control kind of game. Do you have any questions about that?
Not really. It makes sense.
Yeah.
We're playing the game against Bloom, right?
Yeah. If you're not able to win the game on the turn that you promote against them, they're going to control your board and make you start over.
Yeah. Now, round 5. Against an Ancient Grey deck. It's OTK versus OTK in my mind.
This was actually a game against another regional winner. He was playing the Ancient Greymon deck. I think it was pretty much the standard deck. I think the only reason this deck is not better than the X Antibody deck is because it it does not as easily get as big. And it does not have the same control backup plan that WargreymonX Antibody has. So one of the games I wrote down, my opponent swung in 14,000 DP into my security and hit my 14,000 DP Omnimon first check, and he was not able to come back. If he had swung into my security and survived, he would have done 5 checks that turn, and he could have blitzed Omnimon and beaten me before I even promoted my Greymon stack. So it is a deck that has a lot of threat attached to it, but it does not get as big, and as long as your security has big Digimon, they are not guaranteed to win the matchup.
It's kind of like just shifting your gear towards speed, potency, risk, and reward, right?
It is a potentially faster deck. Not always. They really depend on having the promo Agunimon as their level 4 in their stack. But when they do have it, they are potentially going to end the game sooner than you, even if you have the perfect lineup and you don't have to do any searching at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty good summary for what Ancient Grey is versus Wargrey. They just got unlucky a little bit, but it's just part of the risk of how they build their deck too. Then you went against Melga in round 6. Melga is the other super popular deck in format right now. It's very consistent. So I wouldn't mind if you walk through this one.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, in game 1, I did not have a very good stack. Had to promote it without protection because all I basically had were level 3s in my hand, and I needed, if I had just hard played Agumons, he would just bounce them and I would not be getting ahead on board. I might be just searching one card per turn and it would be passing my turn just to search a card, so I would be really stalling myself out. I decided to promote because I had the line to go up to the I think I had a line to go up to a level 6, but I was worried about running out of cards, and I wanted to start a new stack and get a stack that had protection. So I wanted to promote and start over. But as soon as I promoted my first stack, he bounced it, did a ton of security checks, and ideally you don't want to get bounced. You can promote a level 5 stack against a Metal Garurumon deck, and if they try to bounce it, you will just lose 2 sources. Then it's very important to counter swing with with WargreymonX antibody and delete whatever they had out. So it's a back and forth like that. If you don't have the protection, obviously don't promote. I was in a bad situation. This was the best choice I had. It didn't win me the game though. Game 2, we both had slow starts. I was able to get my Digimon on board first, and anything that he tried to play out, I was able to delete it, and he did not have his combo where he could finish me off in 1 turn. And then game 3, my opponent got very unlucky. He was doing basically what I did game 1, where he did not have the cards he needed, and he was just hard playing things, and then I would swing with my Metal WargreymonX antibody, do a couple checks per turn, and delete whatever he played until he didn't have anything left. In general, in this matchup, I think the WargreymonX antibody is slightly out of favor. It depends on the player and how they build the deck. If the player builds their deck with a lot of X antibody options, they're going to be able to do their 5-hit combo and then go into a Metal Garurumon or even an Omnimon for cheap and win the game with that. And because they require less pieces, they only need to get up to the level 5 to start doing a lot of damage to you, and we need to get up to a level 6 to start doing a lot of damage. They are quicker and they have fewer pieces that they need to win, so therefore they will be more consistent than you and quicker, and it's a little bit of an uphill battle. But when they do promote and they don't win on that turn, that is your chance to come back, remove their Digimon, and take back control of the game. So it is a matchup where you want to be promoting the perfect stack. I can't think of another matchup where the perfect stack is more important than the Metal Garurumon versus WarGreymon matchup.
Yeah, and I will agree. It makes 100% sense. They're just faster at setting up what they're trying to do versus you. And then round 7, though, not only was it your first real loss of the day, but it was a loss to the champion, right?
Yeah. I played another Ultimate Cup champion, and this was the future Ultimate Cup champion, the one who became Ultimate Cup champion right after he beat me. So The tournament was announced to be the tournament was announced to be 8 rounds, and there were a lot of people who had 0 losses and 1 draw. So because so many people had that ranking, there was nobody at the top table for the champion to play who had the same score as him, who had only wins and no losses or draws. So he got paired down with me. And there were a lot of possible pair downs he could have had, but I was randomly chosen. And this matchup heavily favors Examon. The only real chance that the WargreymonX deck has against Examon is A, they never find their Slayer Dramon, or B, you are able to get out your OmnimonX antibody and start controlling their board with it. So actually, this is why I have the Metal Greymon from BT1 in the deck. It's so that I can promote and swing over something very big, and with this deck forcing you to attack right after you promote, and it has blocker, and it's going to be like 15,000 DP or larger, and it can protect itself from deletion. Well, that's a lot of ands, right? You want to be able to attack and not die. So I can attack, not die, but the reason I was not able to win was because I never had my combo with OmnimonX, with Blitz Omnimon and the X antibody option, so that after I attack, I can OmnimonX antibody, unsuspend, get another attack in, and bounce their Examon. If I was able to do that, I think I would have won the matchup. But it's such a rare combo because it requires so many intricate pieces in the right order that it wasn't winnable. On the other hand, in both games I played against him, my Metal Greymon from BT1 was in my stack. So I was able to promote safely as a level 6, and not die to his blocker. But I just, after that one attack, all I could do was leave my Digimon out there suspended, because I didn't have the combo. I was not able to draw into it.
Yeah. Well, I want to say thank you so much again for your time, Michael, to go through the video. It was a lot of fun talking about this. Wargrey is a deck that I hold very close to my heart. I know a lot of viewers do as well. Congratulations again to your top 16 placement. What did you finish? I think you said you finished 12th or 14th?
Yeah, this time 12th, which is an improvement last time. I was going to play Black Wargreymon, but I figured my hardest matchup was Metal Garurumon with that deck, and I wanted a deck that had a better chance. I honestly think my results would not have been as good if I didn't choose the Metal GreymonX antibody deck. So I'm happy that I did what I did.
Yeah, congratulations. That was an amazing feat and finish. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. If you guys enjoy this content, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. With that being said, take care, y'all, and I'll see you in the next video.